Hello, lovely friend. I am Dr. Mary Barson.
And I'm Dr. Lucy Burns.
We are doctors,
weight management and metabolic health experts. We are the creators of My Metabolic Action Plan,
your two-step map to real health and weight loss,
which is in fact the name of this podcast.
Join my map now at rlmedicine.com. Hello, lovely friend. Welcome to this episode of the Real Health and Weight Loss Podcast. I am Dr. Mary Barson, joined by the beautiful Dr. Lucy Burns, looking lovely in red today. How are you, my dear friend?
I am fab, totally fab. Happy to be excited and happy to be talking about this topic. So today we're talking about creatine. We actually did a podcast on this over 12 months ago now, but the internet, the social media, the world seems to be pumped full of creatine recommendations, claims, advice. So we thought we'd just go back because we know that, more than a year ago, maybe people haven't found an episode. So it's good to be contemporaneous and produce one that at the moment. So we're doing that. And we're basically going to go through what creatine is, the myths, the non-myths, the who should take it, who shouldn't, who might benefit, who's going to benefit the most, and give you a wrap up on what we reckon.
Totally. We are definitely not here to sell you supplements, but here to help translate the science so you can make informed decisions, because there's been a lot of controversy too about that. Lots of people saying creatinine is amazing and we should all take it, and other people saying creatinine is terrible and we should never take it. And usually the truth, kind of boringly, but importantly, sits somewhere in the middle. So our hope is to help you make an informed choice.
Absolutely. And I love what you talked about then with we're not here to sell you supplements, because I can tell you now, not only is the supplement industry booming, but this ridiculous gummies industry, everything now is packed into a gummy. And it's like, honestly, the gummies are not only full of garbage, but they're usually under the recommended dosing anyway. You have to eat like 25 gummies to get the proper amount. You might as well just go and have a bag of lollies, and it's just bullshit. So I just wanted to get on my gummy.
Yeah. No, I can tell you have got strong feelings about the gummies you need to get out there.
I would like to have a campaign. Gummies for dummies.
Gummies for dummies. I love it. Yeah, which just highlights the fact that this industry is not well regulated. So it is the Wild West out there. So, making as informed choices as possible, I think, is going to be helpful, because we are literally talking about your health here. And there are a few things more precious than that. So good old creatine. What actually is it? So creatine is something that is essential for life. It's just a small little molecule made up of 3 amino acids, glycine, arginine, methionine, and amino acids are the building blocks of our proteins, the little tiny little Lego bricks that all of our proteins are made out of. It's so essential for life that we make our own. We make it in our liver and in our muscle, small amounts in the brain and other tissues, but we also get it from food. And particularly rich sources of creatine are animal sources, so red meat and fish. And
it's muscle.
We need it. Muscle, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, it's in high quantities in muscle. And it has like multiple function in our body, but kind of its core function inside our cells is it helps us recycle our energy production machinery. So our cells, the reason that we are alive, biochemically speaking, is that our bodies can take the energy from our food, and in the presence of oxygen, they can burn it. And in that burning process, they make ATP, adenosine triphosphate, these tiny little batteries. And then these batteries are then used, and then the ATP goes from adenosine triphosphate to adenosine diphosphate in these phosphorylation cascades, and then we can take that, the ATP becomes ADP, and then we can recycle it back into ATP again. And creatine is really helpful. It helps us rapidly convert that ADP back into ATP. So we need it. It's our energy recharge system.
Absolutely.
And like I said, we make it if we don't eat it. It's so essential for life that we've got, systems out there to make sure that we've got it. And it's really important for that's just staying alive, talked about that. But it's also really important for metabolic health, for supporting our muscles, and it's important for our brain health too, and helps buffer the energy demands of our brain, particularly when we're stressed, particularly when we're sleep deprived. And it's really helpful. And having enough creatine is really helpful to make sure that we can grow more muscle, especially when we're strength training, and making sure that our brain can work properly and that all of our cells function clearly. So it's kind of like my cook's tour of what creatine is.
Very similar to the cook's tour of what magnesium did. Just saying.
Yeah, that's right. Similar but different. Yeah, it is. It comes down to energy production, which is, pretty much what all life comes down to at that biochemical level.
Yeah, absolutely. Which all comes back to, and we've done many episodes on the magnificent mitochondria. So the mighty mitochondria, which is, the little factories in our cells that make all of our energy and keep us functioning. So yay. Okay. So Maz, we mentioned muscle and brain. And I guess they're the two big things that are out on the internet at the moment, that creatine will help muscles and creatine will help brain. And the brain one is that it'll help your current cognition and it'll stop dementia is a claim. So let's just talk a little bit about some of this. So what are your thoughts here?
So my thoughts is where it is helpful. There is solid evidence that creatine supplementation does help improve muscle deposition and improve muscle mass when done with strength training. So it can help support strength training, be like a backstage roadie to your strength training efforts to help you build that muscle mass. If you take creatine supplement and, lie down on the couch all day, nothing will happen. But creatine supplementation with strength training can be helpful. The benefits are modest. It's not going to absolutely change your life, but they're there. And we see that really clearly in the scientific literature. So I think that is a very solid evidence-based claim that we can make about that.
Yeah. If you don't take creatine, you can still build muscle though. It's not absolutely essential. So if for whatever reason you don't take creatine, you can still build muscle if you do strength training or do training that is muscle building.
Yeah, absolutely. So it has a minimal supporting backstage role to your strength training regime. It could be a bit helpful. Yeah, and that's good. But yeah, by no means essential. We also know that there's also good evidence for older people who are at risk of that muscle loss because that's sarcopenia, and in postmenopausal women, because they are also at risk of that muscle loss as we get declining estrogen levels. Then creatine is helpful here too, in addition to strength training. So it doesn't turn you into superhero. It just nudges, the gains up a notch if you're already doing the strength training.
Absolutely. So brain and cognition, the next little thing. So it kind of irritates me. There are people out there making claims that creatine will prevent dementia. That's actually rubbish. It is actually rubbish. Again, when we think about the mechanism of action, we've already elucidated that this helps energy production. When our brain's trying to think, sometimes it can't think properly because it doesn't have access to its fuel. We see this in insulin resistance, which also happens at a brain level. We see it with perimenopausal brain fog when estrogen is up and down. And all of that is to do with the brain's ability to access its energy source. So we think that creatine can be helpful in this aspect, particularly for people who have got a brain that's a little bit under stressed. So if they're not sleeping properly, if they've got a big cognitive load, if they're literally under threat, then our brain is prioritizing surviving, not necessarily complex math problems. So creatine can be helpful in these situations.
Yes. And the science shows that the benefits are, again, they're modest. And they're not universal, but it could well be helpful. And I also think that it's worth sort of talking about that it's also pretty safe. And I think that it's important to understand the safety and the side effects of what we see, especially since there are claims out there saying, creatine causes cancer. Don't take it. I think it's important to kind of understand the important context there.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, this is part of the reason we're doing today's podcast was that a friend of mine had sent me another podcast going, what do you think of this? She has a history of breast cancer. She's now a postmenopausal woman. She's taking creatine to help her build, maintain her muscle. And now she was all worried that this other person had made a claim that it can cause cancer. So let's unpack that, Maz.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do that. So first of all, I could say that it's well studied. We've got lots and lots of good quality randomized controlled trials looking at creatine supplementation with doses of around that 3 to 5 grams a day. And it's got good safety record in healthy adults, in the adults that have been studied. There are some common minor issues that do pop up in the literature and pop up for people, like can cause a bit of extra fluid retention. Some people can get gastrointestinal side effects, like they kind of upset tummy, and especially if they kind of go a bit too hard and sort of start with too high doses. And occasionally it can cause cramps, particularly if you're not drinking enough fluid. You will need to make sure that you keep up sensible hydration if you're taking creatine supplements. So that's sort of like, where we're at. And then there are some potential fears out there about creatine wrecks your kidneys, creatine makes you bald.
I know,
creatine. Yeah, that's right. I only learnt about that today, actually, when I was researching this, some of the social media claims. I went onto social media and had a look. What are the social media claims? So I think let's talk about the cancer one first now, because I think that's obviously would have definitely piqued people's attention. So creatine metabolism, it really matters in cancer biology. So cancer cells have got abnormal metabolism. They grow too fast, and too much, and their ability to turn off their growth has been inhibited. So multiple steps have to sort of go wrong for a cell to become cancerous. And there is this sort of theoretical risk, this theoretical concern that because creatine helps improve cellular energy, helps improve cellular machinery, that you could be helping improve the cellular machinery of a cancer cell and improving, the cancer cell's ability to survive and to keep growing and to keep causing all of its problems. I would say that we don't really have good data on that yet. That is not well understood. It's still very much a theoretical risk.
I would actually go further to say we have no data on that. We've got a couple of animal models. There is no human data on that. There's potentially a rat study that was suggestive of it. Equally so, we also have studies that are showing that creatine can slow tumor growth. So again, the science is clearly not well conceptualized and certainly not proven.
Yeah. And I think just putting into context here that creatine is one of the most studied supplements globally. It is one of the supplements that we have the most information about, but that lots of people take it. We've got lots of studies on it, and there has been no associated increased risk of cancer in humans that has been found. So it's the consensus opinion, with all the evidence that we currently have, is that there is no evidence of carcinogenicity. So it's not likely to increase the risk of cancer. And I would always be open-minded and humble, and that, there's always more that we can learn and things can change. But definitely where we are now, we're in a position where there is really no evidence of carcinogenicity and no evidence of organ toxicity for the populations that we're talking about here.
Yes, and this is in creatine monohydrate. Again, there's a few different sort of variations of creatine, but creatine monohydrate is the one that's been studied. It's the one, and again, it's manufactured in factories by combining these 3 amino acids together. It's not taken from skeletal muscle from animal cells or anything like that. As a little side note, you can buy this anywhere. One is not more fancy than the other. They're all the same as long as you're looking at a supplement that is creatine monohydrate.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And I'd say the kidney function thing is also worth talking about. We could talk about the bald thing as well, although that was new to me today. So again, multiple systemic reviews, these randomized controlled trials consistently show that there is no meaningful harm to kidneys when people take creatine monohydrate. What we do see sometimes is an increase in the serum creatinine, which is not creatine. It sounds like creatine, but it's not creatinine. And this creatinine is a breakdown product of creatine. So, and we see more of it in the blood. And this is an important nuance because increased levels of creatinine in the blood can be an indicator of kidney damage, or it can be an indicator of increased creatine breakdown. So it doesn't, just because you've got extra creatinine in the blood doesn't mean that the kidneys are be damaged, but it is one of the markers we look for when we're wondering, hey, how healthy are these kidneys? So it doesn't cause kidney damage, but it can create this sort of slightly confusing picture. So that's an important thing to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can be a bit tricky because sometimes if a doctor was to do blood tests and see that there's raised creatinine, you would be obligated to investigate, does somebody have kidney damage? Because, you'd be a total twat to miss that. Interestingly, the times I've investigated that also in people that have big muscle bulk. So young blokes or anybody who's gone to the gym and has more muscle mass than perhaps the standard person will often have raised creatinine as well. They don't have kidney damage.
Yes. And you can also see it with people who eat, very high protein diets as well, which aren't necessarily damaging their bodies, but also just you've got that increased protein breakdown. There's creatine in most of the animal protein sources that we eat, so we just see it there. So, yeah, but you would still investigate, but that's just an important nuance to understand. And, yeah, the going bald one, which I just saw on social media, is again a theoretical risk because it increases. There's been a small rise in DHT, which is a hormone that it can be associated with male pattern baldness. And so a small study has seen this, but it wasn't linked to actually any measurable hair loss. So I'd say at this stage we don't have convincing evidence that creatine supplementation causes clinically meaningful hair loss. Again, look, be humble, watch this space, but that's definitely where we're at right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Myth for creatine causes massive bloating. Look, to be honest, creatine can cause bloating. Partly what happens is people, again, the internet is, I think the myth should be more is better because that's not true. There are people out there recommending big doses, 20 grams of creatine, and, the studies are really on 3 to 5. There are studies looking at higher doses, but they've not been published yet. And this is the danger at the moment. We're all jumping the gun and quoting research papers as being conclusive when they're not even published. But certainly big doses will definitely cause bloating and gut upset. Smaller doses for most people may cause some temporary bloating, but most people can tolerate it and it usually settles. I think sometimes people get worried, especially if you're a bit scales, if you're looking at scales and you're trying to lose weight and people start taking creatine and their weight might go up 1 or 2 kilos. And, and again, if anyone who's been following us for a while knows that we think most people should throw their scales away. It is not fat mass. You are not gaining fat by having creatine. You may be gaining some water, and that may not cause you any problems at all. Some people might feel a bit puffier initially, but it usually settles down. And at the low doses, it's not a problem for most people.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I reckon the final myth that we might be seeing out there in social media is that everybody needs to be on creatine, and if your GP is not recommending creatine, they are doing you a disservice. And I think that social media has leapt from the I think the evidence says helpful for some to essential for all, which is a really it's a nice story. It's really good for clickbait. It's something that our human brains want to do. We love, a rule that just makes us feel comforted. It just makes the world seem nice and straightforward. But it is not the rule that everybody must be on creatine supplementation. I think that it is a tool that is helpful in specific situations. We didn't talk about that the benefits of creatine seem to be amplified in vegetarians and people who eat plant-based diets. And that's probably just because they're not getting as much creatine from their food. So people who are vegetarians who take creatine tend to have more benefits than people who are not vegetarians taking creatine. But it's probably just because, there's lots of creatine in meat and fish.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think certain situations, if done thoughtfully and cautiously, it can be helpful, but it's not a miracle cure-all for everything.
No, and I think, look, you don't have to take it regularly. If you don't want to, you could, take it intermittently. I'm hopeless at remembering to take things regularly, but if I'm, back to my magnesium story, if my sleep has been a bit rubbish for whatever reason, and I've got a big cognitive load to do, I've got a big work day or I've got something I need to concentrate heavily for, then I do find that sometimes creatine can be helpful. I'll have it before my afternoon and go, right, okay, good, we're good to go. There might be some placebo in that. And again, we've got to count placebo. It's 30% of people benefit from the placebo effect of something. That's okay. It doesn't matter. But yeah, I reckon you're right, Maz. You don't have to take it. Don't feel like you're missing out if you're not taking creatine. You don't have to take an expensive version. And for God's sake, don't take gummies unless you feel like, just throwing your money down the drain. If you want to throw your money down the drain, by all means, get gummies. Otherwise, you can just buy creatine, monohydrate. There's a zillion companies out there that sell it. You can buy it from the supermarket, the chemist. You can get it online if you want to. Do 3 to 5 grams a day. That's it. Keep it simple.
I would also be cautious of like super fancy blends that are expensive and anything that says proprietary on it. Proprietary means we've got stuff in this and we're not going to tell you what it is. So you don't know what you're taking, and just, be cautious. And also a word about vitamin B6 as well. There will be companies that will like to throw in lots of vitamin B6 into your creatine, because it can make people feel, you can feel a little sort of buzz of energy after taking some B6. And if they put that in their blend and you take it like, oh, geez, this is really working. I feel really good. I feel like my brain is working. But you can run the risk of getting B6 toxicity. And so just be very careful of that. If you're going to do it, just, pick a bog standard L cheapo version is fine that just has creatine monohydrate in it.
Yeah, absolutely. You just get a little scoop of the powder. You can pop it into, just sprinkle it on your yogurt or in your hemp seed porridge or whatever breakfast you're having. It's easy. It doesn't have to be fancy. Good. All right, friends, that's it. That's creatine in a nutshell. Absolutely. Again, as you know, we're pretty skeptical of most supplements. Probably we would be recommending this one if it suits you. But if it doesn't suit you, you can absolutely live your life without it. We have done so for many, many thousands of years beforehand.
Correct.
Yes, no cavemen have been sprinkling creatine on their steak.
No.
All right, bye for now, lovelies.
See ya.
The information shared on the Real Health and Weight Loss podcast, including show notes and links, provides general information only. It is not a substitute, nor is it intended to provide individualized medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, nor can it be construed as such. Please consult your doctor for any medical concerns.